So welcome to this ROV chat. Today, Stephen and I will discuss two common challenges in meditation. One, my mind's too busy, too stressed to meditate. And then on the other side, when I meditate, I tend to get super relaxed and fall asleep and I can't stay awake. So this will lead us into talking about the role of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system in meditation. Normally, you might have come to meditation because you want to calm down and you feel stressed out. So you may think of meditation as just being all about consciously relaxing. And that is a dimension of it, but it's really this balance between sympathetic nervous system activation and parasympathetic that we're looking for. And so to start that out, I just wanted to talk a little bit about my heart rate and how it relates to my meditation practice and what I've discovered, especially using the Flow Time headset, where I can not only track the brain waves, but I can track my heart rate in meditation. And when I wake up first thing in the morning, because I like to meditate first thing in the morning, and I measure my heart rate, it's usually 48 to 50 beats per minute. And that's actually I've found it's too slow, too much parasympathetic nervous system for me to have a really profound, deep meditation session. So both Stephen and I have this series of practices where we're massaging our face and doing pressure points on the head, and I massage my scalp with cold water, and then we do stretches, some yoga stretches, and some qigong breathing and movement practices to prepare the body and actually to get a little sympathetic nervous system activation, because that enhances focus and concentration. And so that's an important prelude to our practice, is to get some sympathetic nervous system activation before we meditate. And when I do that, then that brings my heart rate into probably just into the low 60s. I found the sweet spot for my meditation practice is low 60s for kind of quiet mind states, and then up into the low to mid 70s when I'm doing an energizing breath or some of the energy raising techniques that we do in subtle energy meditation. And it's really the balance of doing the energy raising together with the stillness of letting go, quiet mind practices that facilitates a really deep meditation experience. So I know, Stephen, you wanted to talk a little bit about how that's reflected in all the great meditation traditions, this idea of energizing and sympathetic nervous system activation to enable a deeper dive into the quiet mind states.
Yeah, Kevin, thank you. And a beautiful introduction to this. So about this balance of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, when we look at the ancient traditions, and I've been fortunate, like Kevin, to have been trained in many of these from really quite a young age. And I first came to it through Yogananda's teaching. So that was one of my initial steps in. And Yogananda emphasized throughout all the teachings the importance of energization. So he has a whole series of 40 energization, or 39, depending on who you're learning from. But essentially, there's around 40 energization exercises that are practiced every time prior to doing meditation. And what he spoke especially about the life force, about the importance of the medulla, about the importance of posture, about the importance of waking our body up. So waking up this, or making use of the sympathetic nervous system prior to meditating and going deep, and utilizing the parasympathetic nervous system. So he had a really strong balance of both energization and also doing Kriya Yoga, which is a very energizing practice in itself, using the inner channel, and stillness, silence, and spaciousness. And so that was a really natural part of my practice right from the beginning. Then when I came to do Qigong and other practices through martial arts, through Tai Chi and Kung Fu, which I did for many years, it was the same thing. The masters all encourage really powerful preparation in which you would do, a number of really energizing techniques. And then we also did meditation as part of our whole. So it was really important to train the mind as part of that whole martial arts practice. So there was this strong energization and this strong sense of this sacred depth to the practice. So very, very similar. Then I trained as a yoga teacher, and yoga, of course, was never separate. Yoga means union, and it was never separate from meditation. So when I was trained through Yogananda system, so I trained in Ananda in the United States in yoga, and I taught in a variety of places around the world, in the States and Canada and Australia. And one of the things I became particularly aware of when I was teaching in Australia, for example, in gyms, was when I spent part of the practice at the end doing meditation, people, this was a little surprising because the yoga teacher tended to focus on just the physical asanas. And at the end, when you're lying down, in the corpse position or shavasana, you're relaxed, they tended to think of that as the meditation process. So when I'd ask them, oh, so do you meditate? Oh yeah, I always do it lying down. I do it just as part of the yoga process, but right at the end for a few minutes to relax. So there was not the same strong sense of this equal balance of yoga and meditation that I'd been brought up in. And so that was a very curious element for me. And then through the Dalai Lama and the various lamas that I've trained with, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche and Mingyur Rinpoche, the real power in these, Tantra, Mahamudra and Dzogchen teachings that I've been trained in was the preliminary practices, which are considered incredibly important, which can involve yoga-like stances, like the Vajra stance, or Hung yoga practices where you're using really strong energy of the mind to visualize. And so these are all the physical practices, so Tumo or inner fire practices, which are similar to Kriya Yoga. So these are all crucial parts of your preparation and your inner practice prior to the awake awareness practices, or where you literally let go, surrender, or rest in the nature of mind, or rest in the nature of being. So the preliminary practices, and so they have a whole series of practices called Rushin, for example, where on a retreat, in a retreat setting, it's not really appropriate to do in your room at home, because you go and you literally liberate the body by charging around and expressing the physical sense, literally liberating this kind of tension and the kind of connection that we have to the body. There's this embodied sense of tension that we often are not aware of and we don't release. So there's a strong emphasis on us releasing that prior to meditation. The same with the speech, liberating the speech, speaking in high speed and all sorts of different languages in order to liberate the sense of tightness around the speech. So this tightness and looseness, it's coming to terms with the balance of tightness, the sympathetic nervous system, looseness, the parasympathetic nervous system. So all the way through, tightness, looseness, and it relates deeply into grasping and letting go. Fundamentally, most of these paths are teaching you to stop grasping, let go of the narrative self, let go of attachment, let go of fixation. So it's arriving at the balance of this sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system in the way that we can adopt skillful means of tightness, looseness, focused attention, open monitoring. So these are all the way through these ancient practices, and they're again and again, the masters and Rinpoches really reinforce the importance of this balance, like yang and yin, like the masculine and feminine energies. They're so important to honor the sacredness of both and have a skillful practice around them both so that you can balance them. So I know we're going to talk about the both the nervous system and the way that these practices can be so helpful. Kevin.
Yeah, so the this idea of going back to the idea of my mind's too busy to meditate, one of the first things you can do there, as you said, is kind of burn off some of that energy, kind of get into your body, get out of your head and get into your body, right? So you awaken the sensory awareness as well as moving and releasing tension in the body through movement and stretching and so on. So that just initial exercise is a great way to get you out of your head, get you out of your thoughts, as well as releasing physical tension and preparing your body for meditation. So that's a great thing to think about, even if you just do a couple minutes of bouncing up and down and moving your body and doing a few stretches, that can activate this sensory awareness as well as dispel tension. And when you activate sensory awareness and become really in tune with the sensations inside your body, your mind naturally quiets. And you also have this sympathetic activity that will keep you awake and alert.
Yeah, Kevin, that's such an important point. Just connecting to what you were saying about, bouncing. So there are, really practical tips for energization. One of the ones that Yogananda used to use, which I've always, and it's just one of the simple energizations, was to take a breath in and tense your body, then re-inhale. So you're going, and you're really now fully embodying the tension, and then and literally shake it out, relax. That really simple energization process prior, even if that was the only thing that you did prior to sitting down, that in itself, like bouncing for a few minutes. So do 3 or 4 of that where you tense the whole body, re-inhale and tense again, so that you're really fully tensing right throughout, head to toe, and then double breath out to release. These simple tips can actually really help your practice, because you suddenly find, oh, look at that, I hadn't realized I was holding on to these tensions, and there they are, naturally liberating. I can feel them sort of sliding off me. So I think, simple practical things for the energization part of it are really crucial. So yeah, I love the bouncing one you've done, Kevin, many times. It's really beautiful way of grounding the heels in and starting to, liberate these tensions.
And you mentioned the breath, and the breath itself has this balance of sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. With as we breathe in, the heart rate tends to elevate and the sympathetic nervous system is more activated, and we receive oxygen and the cells are more energized. And then as we breathe out, then the parasympathetic nervous system is activated. And so the breath itself has this balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic built into it. And so if you find yourself really stressed, you can do, as you've often suggested, a breath in that's for 4 seconds, but then a breath out that's for 8 seconds. So if you're on that side of things where you're feeling too stressed, you can emphasize the parasympathetic out breath and extend that, and you'll find that your heart rate quiets down in your body, especially as you're paying attention to the sensations of breathing. Your mind quiets down, you get into this sensory awareness. And so that's the breath is one way into finding the right balance for you at the moment. And also posture. And so I know you wanted to talk about some posture points, and should I share my screen with this?
Yeah, share your screen while I'm talking about it.
Okay.
So yeah, the points of posture are really crucial. So very much like Kevin was saying, we start to become crucially aware of different parts of our practice. So we become aware of how important it is to balance this active state with this passive state, or the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. we become aware of the importance of the breath and knowing the breath and having a relationship to the body relationship, the breath relationship in terms of knowing, do we need to equalize the breath because it feels quite stable? Do we need more of a long exhalation because we are feeling more tense today? So, and it's the same with the postures. In a lot of the ancient traditions, they use the 7-point posture. So this is often called the 7-point posture of Vairocana, the Buddha Vairocana, and that was simply that your legs are crossed. So that was one of the points. Or that's if you're sitting on the floor, or if you're sitting in a chair, your legs are parallel and feet flat on the floor. And then the second point of the posture was that your hands are in your lap or on the knees. So again, depending on how you're sitting, but they can simply rest in your lap. So the first part is the grounding, right? And the second part, so it's the lower dantian. The second part, the hands in the lap, is the mid dantian. So you're also becoming connected with the energy in the energy centers. The third point is the back. The back is straight and the spine is straight. So this is really crucial for many of the central channel exercises, working with the energies in the sushumna, which Kevin and I are going to mention shortly. Then the shoulders spread like an eagle, or like they say, like a vulture's wing. So you spread your shoulders, because this is a point of tension for many people, is the what we hold, the burdens we hold in our shoulders. And the fifth one is the neck. So the chin is slightly lowered. This gives a stretch, opening the way for the energies to channel through the nervous system. If our head is pushed too far back, there's kind of tension that we create at the back of the neck. So it's really crucial that your neck is elongated, and then the mouth. So the mouth is relaxed, and the tip of the tongue. There are actually chakra points within the mouth itself. So if you rest your tongue, the tip of your tongue, on the roof of your mouth, for example, you activate a chakra, an energy center within the mouth itself. And then the last one is the eyes. That the eyes, you have, for some people, their practice is that their eyes are uplifted. For some people, their eyes are straight ahead. For others, their eyes are down towards the tip of the nose. So wherever your eyes are, whatever your practice is, it's crucial to be aware of what the practice is. Otherwise, your eyes are busily moving around and are unsettled and show the degree of uncertainty or tension in the body. So this relates to what we're going to talk to next, because as Kevin's going to point out, there are specific, so I mentioned, the mouth and the eyes and the base of it's on the spine itself. There are crucial nerve endings in the eye and the mouth and the spine that are really important to know, because they actually help you to understand how the autonomic nervous system works, and also how the balance of the sympathetic and parasympathetic system works.
Yeah, exactly. So here on this graphic, you can see the blue nerves and ganglia and so on are the sympathetic nervous system, and the green are the parasympathetic nervous system. So let's just talk a little about this breathing up through the spine. First of all, the upright posture is essential so that the spine is elongated and straight. And we begin then at the perineum. So if you look down at the bottom of this, if you can see my pointer there, squeezing the perineum, you can see is the perineum has this sympathetic nerve right here at the perineum. So as you squeeze the muscles there, you're actually generating a little bit of nerve stimulation there in the sympathetic system. And then as you draw the breath up through the central channel, up through the spine, you'll see that it's going right through the sympathetic nerves right here and up into the base of the skull. So a couple points along the way. One is when you tuck your chin, you'll see how it lengthens the back of the neck and stretches the nerve right from the um, base of the cervical um, vertebrae up to into the base of the skull. That stretch of the nerve actually stimulates the current in the nervous system and stimulates the nerve sheath, the perineural sheath around the nerves, which creates more electrical impulse. So, and that runs right up into the brainstem and then into the center of the brain. As Stephen said, the tongue to the tip of to the roof of the mouth, and then the subtle smile. The subtle smile is a way of balancing the sympathetic and parasympathetic. You see both the sympathetic and parasympathetic have nerves that go right into the face by the mouth here. So if you had a big smile, that's really sympathetic, right? But if you have a subtle smile, it's just a light activation of the sympathetic nervous system within a feeling of relaxation. So there's a nice balance there. Same thing with the eyes. There's a softening of the eyes, a softening of the gaze, even as you're concentrating and focusing on something. So there again, there's this balance of softness within activation that you're looking for. And the instruction in meditation to be not too tight on your focal object and not too loose with it is a representation of this balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So you see in the nerves here and in the posture, the relationship to that balance. You see that in all these places, there's both sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves, and they're both active in this process in all the posture points. So I found this this graphic of the autonomic nervous system, both its branches, to be really instructive for why the posture points are so essential.
And Kevin, I think going to your point of the power of realizing that every action that you take, for example, squeezing the perineum, not only activates the nervous system itself, but as we know, the sheath of the spinal cord has also an effect on the body. So when we're gently squeezing and drawing the energy upwards, we're actually creating both a movement in the cerebrospinal fluid plus this piezoelectric effect of the muscles working to create extra voltage in the body. So we're not only connecting to and learning how to balance the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, but we're putting through igniting voltage in the body. We're actually putting the body into a healthy state of balance in terms of its electrical system so that it can heal and so that cells can regenerate and repair themselves. So there is a really crucial function for energizing, for using the parasympathetic nervous system. And then equally, when you rest, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, you are equally activating the power of the body to heal and repair in a state of rest. So these dual actions of sympathetic nervous system through high energy activation and parasympathetic through this rest and deep relaxation and stillness have an incredibly powerful healing effect on the body. And once we start to connect it to the way that the nervous system itself actually works, we understand the focus now on a lot of practices. For example, we speak about the torus breath. In our own practices, we speak about the importance of energizing the central spinal column through drawing energy upwards. We speak about the importance of squeezing the perineum, and then, as you've already mentioned, the subtle smile, the elongating the neck, the importance of posture. These allow the body to assist our meditative practices to really its best ability. And I think that and the way this diagram works, when I looked at this with you, it really alerted me to the fact that the nervous system itself and the heart, for example, because we're talking all the time about this, dropping. You were talking to me the other day about Sri Aurobindo, for example, and Sri Aurobindo about the importance of what he calls integral yoga, and that is that we not only bring energy up like we do with the torus breath into connecting with the universal field, because the cosmos itself is designed around a torus field effect, but we also understand how important it is to drop or sink or let go down and into the heart. And when you look at the nerve endings in the heart and you think of many of the great practitioners like Sri Aurobindo, Ramana Maharshi, all the great Tibetan practitioners from Padmasambhava and Yeshe Sogye that spoke about a crystal kati channel and the relationship of the nerves behind the eyes and the nerves ending in the heart. And you can see it in the diagram. And you realize why they spoke about the importance of dropping or sinking down into the heart, or this open-hearted awareness, or this flow of love and unconditional compassion being just as important as this opening to the vast infinite space and the light above the crown. So, we talk about that in subtle energy meditation. It's equally reflected in the practice, the ancient practices of Zoji Mahamudra. Doesn't matter where you look, they speak about the importance of this balancing between the highly energized state, or the sympathetic nervous system activation, and the deeply open-hearted, aware and relaxed state where you literally rest and in that stillness, silence and spacious awareness, which is that parasympathetic nervous system activation.
Right. And then even further integrating it into the body at the end, right? You're drawing it down. Look at all the nerves in the lower dantian area. You see why that's such a vital center and how it relates to your enteric nervous system and your digestion. So it's really this nerve center here in the lower dantian, and then in the heart, and then up into the center of the brain. You can see why the three dantians are such a center of focus in Qigong, because you can see all the nerves that are associated with those areas.
I so agree, Kim. I mean, I was thinking about that when we were, when we've been talking about the importance of the Dantian areas. And, if you're familiar with the work of Locke Kelly, as some of our listeners will be, there, he's constantly saying, drop into this heart or down to the belly or womb area. The importance of that is because there is so much energy there that when we're in this headspace where we're locked into concept and narrative self, we're literally not in touch with that. We're not even activating those areas because we're simply not aware of them. Of course, they operate of their own accord, but we don't make full use of the incredible battery source or the universal power that's in these lower areas. So when you hear, I remember when I first came to these practices a long time ago, and people were talking about dropping awareness and dropping out of narrative self, and and they literally will mean this both on a physical level and a metaphysical level. The metaphysical level, of course, is that you drop everything. You literally let go. You're not trying to grasp or hold on. But the physical level is that you are actually literally dropping to make use of these lower energies that if you look at our practices in Qigong and the martial arts, they speak all the time about Qi and the power of the lower Dantian and being grounded and connecting with the planet and so on. And these are all, as you said, when you look at the enormous number of nerves that end in that lower Dantian area, you can see why it's been focused on in many, many practices, whether it's lower dantian breathing, whether it's qigong, whether it's the ancient Shaolin practices, where there's a reason why this area, often overlooked, is actually so crucial to balancing our nervous system.
Right, and balance and integration are, I think, the two words I'd like people to leave with today, is just the idea of the balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic, right? If you're over sympathetic and stressed, you can come more towards the parasympathetic side. And if you're finding you're falling asleep, you need to do something to activate the sympathetic. So that balance, but also the integration of the lower, middle, and upper dantians, and the integration of your whole nervous system through this central spine. That's why we're doing what we're doing in subtle energy meditation or in Kriya Yoga, and where you're integrating all those energies through the spine and creating a balanced, vital, whole system.
Beautifully said, Kevin. Beautifully said. And that's a lovely point, I think, to leave all our listeners, all of you who are such great practitioners. This really is such an important thing to bear in mind about the balance of your practice. So really inquire into the nature of where is your practice right now, what's present. Do you have a good balance of both sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system practices? Do you actually balance the tightness and the looseness? Do you balance the energization and the relaxation? Do you, and therefore, and Kevin mentioned it right at the beginning, therefore, if you're looking at your practices, are you tending more to be asleep, or are you tending more to be really agitated? And that's kind of a really good sign as to exactly where you are and what's present in your meditation practice.
Thank you, Stephen.
Kevin, thank you. Such a beautiful
Thank you all
discussion.
for watching.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your practice.